Hey everybody, this is the Coffee with a Geek show, and it is May of 2019. We finally have spring here in Western New York, which has been a good change. We've had a long winter. With me today is a great guest, as always. I have Mike Tholfsen from, he was the principal product manager at Microsoft Education, and he focuses on inclusive classroom learning tools, and as well as OneNote class and staff notebook. And if you don't know what that is, I'm going to make sure Mike explains that to you. So I'm going to start, Mike, with the toughest question of all. What is your favorite coffee blend?
Oh, my favorite coffee blend. That's a tough one, but being from Seattle, I have to go with my hometown favorite, Starbucks. And I think specifically there's a Casi Cielo blend that comes out maybe once or twice a year. And that's probably my favorite.
You probably can't go wrong with Starbucks, I don't think.
So I was drinking Starbucks before they were cool, though.
Oh, nice.
If they're not, maybe they're not cool anymore. Well, they were cool for a while. I don't know what they are now.
Oh, I still think they're cool. So let's kind of dig into your background, just in education. How did you get to be in Microsoft and principal product manager? How does that happen? What's the journey there?
Yeah, well, I actually joined Microsoft directly out of college. I came from college to Microsoft, and I started in engineering. And I started on the very first version of Outlook, the long, long ago version of Outlook. And so I was in engineering for actually most of my career. I got into education when I moved to the OneNote team back in 2004, and I was an engineering manager. And I started having a lot of really interesting ideas around how OneNote could be used in the education space, because we were building this really compelling version that did a lot of interesting things that I thought, oh, this could be pretty transformational in education. So I started working kind of on the side as like a passion project on a lot of education things and working with teachers and students. I was kind of known as the crazy OneNote education guy for many years long ago. But then in about 2010, I left the OneNote team and I worked on some other projects. Still in engineering and not working in education at all. And then in probably 3 or 4 years later, a guy from Microsoft Research reached out to me with some observations he'd been seeing using OneNote and one-to-one computing and the rise of a lot of educational things that we all see now. And so I kind of got pulled back into education with this researcher, and him and I worked together to put this class notebook and we launched that. We got that built. And then I moved into the product management role about 5 years ago, really focusing on that OneNote class notebook and staff notebook. So I kind of got back into education again, but from the product management side. And then after that, in terms of learning tools in the inclusive classroom, doing the OneNote education stuff, I also got involved in a hackathon that really focused on dyslexia and a lot of assistive technology. And that little hackathon is something that we've built, and I'm the product manager for now, and we built it into this full immersive reader and some of the other inclusive classroom tools. So it's kind of been a winding road, but that's the medium version of it.
Well, so let's dig into maybe OneNote, and I came across you and your work really through Twitter. I saw some great tweets from you and just some real relevant stuff. I'm in a district now that is Office 365 district. So this is the first time that I've really dug deep into the tools, and I was looking for a resource. Who's out there that can help me really learn and dig in. Of course, the Microsoft Education site, I will honestly say, is a great site. It's got a lot of tutorials and quick and easy things. But I love kind of the live nature of Twitter and more the human connection with Twitter. So tell me about, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with everything Office 365 has, but maybe specifically focus on OneNote and the OneNote Classroom and how powerful that is, because that's the one thing, everyone I think probably has an idea of PowerPoint, Word. Mm-hmm. Those have come so far, but so let's pull it together and talk about OneNote, and hopefully you can dig deep into it.
Yeah. So OneNote itself, like OneNote standalone, is really powerful for education. I mean, one of the things, like I said, back in 2004, when I started working on OneNote, the light bulb moment for me was when we were building all these new capabilities. Well, they were new at the time, into OneNote. And most people thought, and some still do, OneNote's just for taking notes, right? It's just a note-taking app. And sort of my idea was, okay, I think we could take the entire education process and put it inside of OneNote, right? Like content and feedback and collaboration and do everything inside of OneNote, which at the time was like way over people's heads because they barely knew what OneNote was. And they're like, wait, we do stuff inside of OneNote? Like we just take notes with OneNote. So that's the thing that I think is one thing, which is really using the power of some of the OneNote features and putting that whole, like the content, the collaboration, the annotation, the feedback, all those things into OneNote, where it's just one place instead of 50 places. That's kind of part one, where OneNote has this rich canvas, like digital paper. It's got the binder metaphor, and then it has the collaborative parts, and it's on all platforms. Then the class notebook piece is like where we supercharged all those things, and we help teachers set it up in this ideal way. And what we saw was there was a lot of teachers out there sort of hacking together some of these things on their own and doing it in a really hard way of trying to make OneNote more sort of classroom ready. So we worked with a lot of these old teachers in schools doing this. And then we had some new ideas we brought in around like the content library and collaboration space, where we said, let's give the teacher an easy button. And they just push that button, which is the wizard, and it will set up this highly structured and permissioned and collaborative notebook that makes it really easy for them to put their whole class inside of OneNote. Like back when I was saying, I was always trying to get everything inside of OneNote. The class notebook sets it up to do that much more easily and lets all these teachers sort of vault into, oh, now I've got this really nicely set up notebook. And then we started building the class notebook toolbar, which is just the ability for teachers to give handouts and differentiate and have a little teacher only area. And then even in the collaboration space, we've made it so now you can make little project-based learning parts in your collaboration space. So we've started to add a lot of these capabilities, whether it's personalization or differentiation or project-based learning, but allow them to happen through OneNote. And even beyond that, because OneNote has a stylus and has audio and video, you can do everything in OneNote. The thing that I like to ask people who maybe are using just a keyboard only, or maybe they're just, just using typing laptops or Chromebooks, whatever it might be, I'll say, hey, I bet your English teachers and your history teachers really like that. And they're like, yeah, they love it. And I say, so tell me, how are you doing things like geometry, algebra, trigonometry, calculus, biology, chemistry, physics, art, PE, drama? Like I'll name all these topics. What are you doing with your laptops for those subjects? And usually the answer is paper. And so I'll say, well, you know what? If you have OneNote, everything's digital. You've gone completely digital. Especially assuming you have some sort of a stylus, which at this point you can get an active pen and laptop for under $300. And then you can digitize everything and really move into this world of rich collaboration and interactivity and no more books. So that's where I think the true power of putting all those things together, and then it's all in one place. And in many cases, what we've found is that, especially for students with special needs, OneNote can be even more powerful, because now executive functioning things, we've built in the immersive reader. I'm not losing my work. The teacher can go in and give very personalized feedback in multimodal ways. And there's all these capabilities that we didn't initially plan for around special education with the class notebook and with OneNote, but a lot of these things are now possible that we're seeing too.
Can you talk maybe a little bit more in detail for, again, maybe the person who hasn't used a OneNote notebook before? Talk about the immersive reader and what are the pieces of that. I know the best way to do it would be to show you, but maybe just give us a quick little taste and description.
Yeah, so the immersive reader, that actually came from a hackathon. So after I'd been doing the class notebook and OneNote for a year or two, there was another group inside of Microsoft. And the hackathon is where anyone at the company can work on whatever project they want for a week. It's like a big genius hour for adults is what I call it. And so I actually, because I'd been known as kind of the OneNote education guy on the education team, I actually got pulled into a team that was, we had a speech pathologist, we had reading experts, accessibility experts, and researchers. And I joined this hackathon team, and we said, what if we take the latest science and research around reading, and we focus inclusively on dyslexia as our core customer type, but we believe that will help all students with reading if we really focus on dyslexia, but those same techniques should help everyone with reading. And so this team that I was on, this hackathon team, we built this little thing called the Immersive Reader. At the time, the little toolbar was called the Learning Tools Toolbar, but really the core of it was the Immersive Reader. And it was actually built into OneNote. It was a OneNote add-in originally. So what did it do? It has a whole bunch of capabilities built in, and many of them are proven techniques, and some of them are newer capabilities. So first off, we built in read aloud or text to speech, which that exists out there, but now it's just built into OneNote, which makes it nice. We allow that when the screen goes up with this immersive reader, we allow the student to personalize the way it looks. So you can increase the spacing to reduce visual crowding. You can change the background color of the page, because a lot of students have challenges reading on a white background or a black background. You can make the font much bigger, smaller, so you can really personalize it easy. But then we added new things, like with a single click, you could break all the words into syllables, which is a common technique, not only with dyslexia, but English language learners or early readers. You could highlight different parts of speech, like nouns, you could highlight with colors, and verbs and adjectives. So really giving students independence on their own to work with this content. And that was in the original hackathon. Then we added more things later on to the Immersive Reader. We've added a picture dictionary. So click on a word and just see a picture and then read it out loud. Or line focus, which makes the page kind of look like this, so I can just focus on like one line at a time, like a reading ruler, and move it up and down the page. And even real-time translation. So now you can translate a whole document and everything changes, the read aloud voice, the syllables, the parts of speech, everything changes. And so all of those things are now, initially were just built into OneNote, but now we've actually built this immersive reader across all of Office and Windows. So it's built into Word, it's built into Teams, it's built into Flipgrid, it's built into Outlook and Office Lens and Edge. So we're really taking those immersive reader techniques and spanning them across the board. But I will say, I still think one of the most powerful ways you can, it's like when you take the class notebook and you take immersive reader, it's like 1 + 1 = 3. And the reason is, with the class notebook and the ability to distribute content and push pages to students and different pages of content. So now I've got my binder. The teacher takes a piece of content, and it could even be a picture, because OneNote does optical character recognition. So maybe the teacher takes a picture of a book, puts it into OneNote, distributes that in their class notebook so every student gets this virtual handout. Then the student can personalize that content for them. So now I'm like, launch the immersive reader. I'm going to set it up in a way that works for me. Maybe I struggle with reading. Maybe I've got ADHD. Maybe I'm an English language learner. But every student has their binder where they get to personalize it themselves. And so to me, that's like a really powerful combination of, now I can, as a teacher, universal access of content, distribute it across the class notebook, and then access it all with that immersive reader. So to me, those two combined is one of the most powerful things that I've seen.
I agree. I guess, one of the things that fascinates me is kind of the geeky person here. When you were describing kind of your work environment there, you talked about hackathon and working in groups, and Microsoft, where you work, seems like it's a pretty dynamic place. I mean, I think we always imagine, the big tech companies, that's how it works. There's variety and different learning, spaces and collaboration across the way. Do you feel that work, is that an accurate description of your work environment? And do you think that work environment is something that could work in schools and flow right into the Office 365 tools and suite?
Yeah, so that is a pretty accurate description of how, it's very collaborative. We work in open spaces now. We've actually gotten rid of a lot of our offices, so it's much more open environment for collaboration. And our CEO has put really helped us through culture change as a company. So we weren't always maybe as collaborative as we could have been. We're collaborative with each other, but we also work with partners, and we also work with competitors. We just announced a big deal with Sony and video games, which in the old world of Microsoft 10 years ago, that would have been unheard of. So I definitely think that's possible, or that's the reality. But then to your question, also, bringing in, we actually do this in our team. We'll often have hackathons, but we'll bring in local teachers and local students to work with us and brainstorm on ideas. And we'll have design jams, and we'll often pull in teachers on Skype calls to collaborate with and show new ideas to and improve them. So that's something that we are doing already And I mean, we're working on some new things right now, which I'm not going to share the details of, but we did a design jam where we probably called up 15 different educators in schools on Skype calls and brainstorm new ideas, got their feedback, and we'll iterate that process before we even build anything. Because the cheapest way to build something is draw pictures. It's a lot cheaper to draw pictures and mock-ups than actually write all the code and find out, oh, that was a dumb idea. And so it's much easier to really, we have flash feedback. We'll bring students and teachers in to give us feedback and early concepts. So we do bring educators and students into the process today already.
Now, can you tell me about your crystal ball? Where do you see the future of education 5, 10, 20 years down the line?
Yeah, well, you know, this is going to be totally accurate. So whatever I say is going to be correct, I'm sure. I think the two big topics will be, one is going to be data and analytics. I think there's just going to be more and more available, at least digitally, to be able to get a sense of what students are doing and how they're progressing, and how can we give that data back to teachers in meaningful ways that they can make sense of and make better decisions with. Because right now there's either too much data or there's no data. And we want to find ways, or I think the world wants to find ways to get the right data presented in the right way to the teacher at the right time. And I think there'll be more and more of that being where the teacher can get access to some of these insights and then help tailor their instruction in a more meaningful way than they maybe can do without any of that data. So I think one area is definitely going to be using data and insights for more personalization. Now, a lot of people talk about, automated adaptive learning. I don't know. I'm not sold on that. I think it's an interesting concept, but I think it's very hard to do well. And also you need the collaboration, you need the human interaction. And so that's where I think providing educators with the right insights so they can make the right decisions is a more powerful direction in my mind. And on the other side, I think you're going to see this whole assistive technology and inclusion is going to go even bigger. I mean, we're just scratching the surface now of some of the capabilities to bring all these students in that have maybe been left behind in the past, or currently in many cases where they're not digitized. So that's where, if you've seen Microsoft as a company, accessibility and inclusion and using AI sort of for good and to help more people to access the world, I think you're just going to see more and more and more of that. I mean, that's the area that I focus on a lot myself, and I'm very excited about. There's so many things that we can do to bring more and more students along to help them get the full education, the fair and public education, so to speak. And I think you're just going to see more on that front, that it's going to get even better and better and better.
Okay, kind of last question. Can you talk from my kind of view as someone who's been in ed tech and education for almost 20 plus years, I've really noticed over these past maybe few years that there's been an explosion at Microsoft and really some great developmental tools. We were talking about OneNote, Immersive Reader. Even PowerPoint to me is a multimedia powerhouse now. It's no longer, the traditional presentation tool. Mm-hmm. Was it just an evolution and all things kind of came together, or was it a vision? Was it a leadership change? I know you can't maybe talk every little piece of that, but has there been just some sort of event that came together that brought this awesomeness?
It's actually almost all the above of what you said. So first off, we got a new CEO, Satya Nadella, about 4.5 years ago, who really made education a priority from a cultural level. Like, he just said, hey, education is important. It's something I care about as a CEO. It's something that our company should care about, because he would say education was his ticket to move forward in life from where he was. So that was one thing. We also got a brand new VP of education, because the company at the time didn't really have a product leader in education. We kind of had some incubations and research. Even when I started working and we created the class notebook, we didn't even have a VP of education at that point. That was like a little side project, really. So we had this vice president of education who has really brought a lot of passion and leadership. And then also we formed a product team. I've been part of this education team. since it started. We've brought in a lot of really good people who are passionate about the space. We've made acquisitions of these fabulous companies like Flipgrid and ChalkUp, and brought in some really great thinkers and leaders and ex-educators in that space. And we've also, to be honest, we've really put a focus on the customer, on the teachers, on the students, on the staff. And I would say 10 years ago, Microsoft didn't do that so well, if I was to be honest. And 5 years ago, we had started to do a little bit. But really in the last 3 to 4 years, that customer obsession, as we call it, and like, we're going to go talk to teacher and student over and over from every country in the world. We're going to listen, we're going to take their feedback, and we're going to act on it, and we're going to move fast. Like, we're not going to take 10 years to do the next thing. We're going to turn these things around fast and keep iterating. I think all those things together has produced some of the things that you're talking about.
Well, it's definitely been noticed, and like I said, I've been the school I'm working at. I think it's noticed as well, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, we're not.
It's exciting.
We're gonna be relentless.
Okay, well, it's time for the Speed Geek question. So these can be kind of quick, short answer, somewhat whimsical. Let me just bring up my magical board here and see if we can spin the dial, and we'll try and go through 3 of them. Oh, this one's a little tricky. This one is a generational one. That is your first storage device.
Oh, yeah. My first storage device, floppy disk, and an Apple II Plus computer. How old I am. My dad was one of the first to buy an Apple II Plus on the block. So yeah, I was a kid who was lucky enough to have an Apple II. So floppy disk.
Nice. I've seen it. I'm actually even older than that. I've got the cassette tape as my original one. So that was brutal. All right, we'll go with another one here. Okay, we've kind of hit on this. If you could design your own school, what would it look like?
Design my own school. Well, I think it would definitely be more of an open environment school. I love the schools that have the garages where you can open up the garage doors and you can kind of merge classes. So I like the collaboration. It would have a lot of project-based learning. I'm a huge fan of project-based learning. I think it would be very inclusively designed, and there'd be a lot of assistive technology and available to students that needed it. And I think it would probably be something where we would try to bring in a very diverse body of students and backgrounds. That's my perfect school.
Well, again, it kind of sounds like Microsoft, doesn't it?
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
All right, so here we go. We'll do one more. And here we go. All right, the toughest one of all. What is your favorite educational blog?
I think, and this would count as a blog, I like EdSurge. EdSurge is really good. All the latest, I think, trends and edtech companies and what's happening in the edtech space, and it's pretty timely. So I think EdSurge is my favorite.
That is a good one. I do follow that one. Yeah, it's good to keep up, and it's short and to the point. So good on the run. So, well, Mike, thank you so much for your time. I will keep following you on Twitter. You're giving great advice, good stuff. Microsoft's doing great things. So
thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Thanks for having me. And keep watching the blogs and Twitter as we go into ISTE. We got all kinds of fun stuff coming.
All right. I'll be at ISTE on Tuesday and Wednesday, so I'll stop and see you.
Great. Let's meet. Okay. See ya.
All right. Awesome.